Here are the lives of the wealthiest people behind bars unveiled. Today, we're taking a look inside prisons where millionaires and powerful crime bosses have turned into their playground and enterprise. From a custom-built cell designed for one man and his inner circle, possibly the most expensive prison setups ever, to inmates who practically ran entire prisons like their private businesses. These stories show just how far money and influence could go, even behind bars. El Chapo, Sinaloa Cartel, Mexico. Puente Grande was Mexico's most secure federal prison. For one man, it was a relocation. That man was Joaquin Archibaldo Guzman Loera, El Chapo, the head of the Sinaloa cartel and one of the most powerful drug traffickers in the world, responsible for the majority of cocaine, heroin, meth, and fentanyl entering the United States. The cell had a plasma television, a refrigerator stocked with premium food at all times, a private bathroom, while other inmates shared communal facilities and ate whatever the kitchen produced, standardized, institutional, often barely edible. El Chapo ordered from a personal menu, premium steaks, fresh seafood, desserts imported from Italy. He drank cognac. He drank expensive champagne. He maintained a personal gym while the men around him had nothing. Conjugal visits arrived without the standard restrictions applied to every other inmate in the building. Women came, including models and television personalities. They came whenever he wanted them, for however long he wanted them, and no guard said a word, because the guards were his, all 71 of them. Guards, police officers, and the prison director himself were all on El Chapo's personal payroll inside Puente Grande alone. Total bribery bill for that single facility, $2.5 million. He organized multiple private parties inside maximum security walls with alcohol, live music, and dancing. And not once did an official intervene. Every party finished on his schedule. Every guest left when he decided. The phones were the real operation. From inside his cell, using smuggled mobile devices, El Chapo ran the Sinaloa cartel as though he had never been arrested. From inside his cell, he issued orders across international supply routes, directed violence against rivals, and managed operations in detention facilities across Mexico. Prisoners in other jails who failed to pay or refused his terms faced consequences ordered directly from his cell. Their families were not safe either. In January 2001, a guard named Francisco Javier Camberos Rivera disabled the security cameras, walked to El Chapo's electronically locked cell, and opened it. El Chapo climbed into a laundry cart. He was rolled out of the building. He spent the next 13 years as a fugitive, continuing to run the Sinaloa cartel, appearing on the Forbes billionaire list, and becoming the most wanted man in the Western Hemisphere, while Mexico's government publicly insisted he would be recaptured within days. In February 2014, Mexican authorities finally caught him in the Pacific resort city of Mazatlan and returned him to prison. That was the first escape. The second was more ambitious. In July 2015, authorities discovered a 1.5-kilometer tunnel dug directly beneath the shower of his cell in Mexico's Altiplano maximum security prison, complete with ventilation, lighting, and a motorcycle mounted on rails. His associates had purchased a house directly adjacent to the prison perimeter. His engineering team dug from the house in shifts, undetected for months. He was eventually recaptured, extradited to the United States in 2017, convicted on all counts in February 2019, and sentenced to life plus 30 years. He is now in ADX Florence, Colorado, the Alcatraz of the Rockies, range 13. ADX Florence is the only federal supermax in the United States, the facility that also holds the Unabomber, the Boston Marathon bomber, and the September 11 conspirators. He stays in the most restrictive unit in the entire facility. His cell is 7 by 12 feet of poured concrete. He spends 23 hours a day inside it. His 1 hour outside happens in a fortified cage attached to the cell wall. In 2025, his legal team reported high blood pressure, insomnia, anxiety, and near constant physical pain, with no adequate medical care. In letters obtained by Mexican media, El Chapo wrote that the conditions were pushing him to the edge of insanity. The man who bribed 71 people and ran a prison like a private club now sits in a cell smaller than a parking space and is not permitted to know what time it is. Rolando Florian Fales, Cali Cartel, Dominican Republic. The next man did not just buy one prison. He built a luxury empire inside his cell that made El Chapo's setup look modest, and he never once tried to escape. He was the most dangerous drug trafficker ever convicted in the Dominican Republic, the local face of the Cali cartel, the Colombian cocaine empire that dominated global supply in the 1980s and early 1990s, before its leadership was dismantled, controlled an estimated 80% of cocaine entering the United States at its peak, wanted for smuggling 953 kilos of cocaine hidden inside cans of sauce, and for the kidnapping and murder of a sitting senator's son. When police arrested Rolando Florian Fales on June 8, 1996, it was announced as a national triumph. He was sentenced to 20 years and sent to Najayo Penitentiary, the maximum security wing. What he built inside that wing over the next 13 years was a private residence. Cells at Najayo were bought and sold like real estate. The premium options, known as Las Especiales and Los Veteranos, could be converted for the right price into private apartments. Oriental rugs, mirrored walls, air conditioning, a king-sized bed, direct connection to the electricity grid, bypassing the prison's own supply entirely. Custom furniture built to order. A craftsman just outside the facility sold purpose-built pine beds starting at $4,000 each. Every item required a direct bribe to the warden for entry. Florian Fales dictated the process. His cell had a 42-inch plasma television on the wall, a full refrigerator stocked at all times. While inmates in the standard blocks fought over whatever the kitchen served, Florian Fales ate at the level of a 5-star restaurant, 3 times a day, inside a maximum security cell. Did he want black caviar? No problem. Lobster, already being prepared. Premium steaks, imported seafood, Dutch cheeses, Japanese wagyu, elite wines. He spent an estimated $1,000 a week on food alone. Personal chefs prepared every meal inside the facility. The furniture was custom-made mahogany. His personal collection of books and paintings lined the walls. It was a private collector's study with a cell number. The parties happened regularly. Private celebrations inside Najayo, alcohol, live music, dancing, and female visitors brought through guards he had on permanent payroll. His weekly spending on models and sex workers delivered directly into the facility was estimated between $3,000 and $5,000. He received guests whenever he chose, for as long as he chose. Not one guard intervened, not once in 13 years. From inside the cell, he continued directing drug trafficking operations. His brother, Juan Danilo, and other associates ran cocaine supply routes into Puerto Rico and the United States, while Florian Fales managed the network from Najayo. In December 2005, prison officials discovered an escape tunnel beneath the facility. The discovery happened only because Florian Fales had requested a transfer, claiming violations of his penitentiary rights. Renovation work connected to that request led workers to the tunnel. By sheer coincidence, he had effectively reported his own escape route. Anyone inside who crossed him was punished. No elaboration was ever required. The guards enforced it. The United States requested his extradition repeatedly. Dominican authorities kept stalling. The same system that had been purchased inside Najayo extended well beyond its walls. On May 16, 2009, official reports described it as a confrontation with a prison employee. 6 shots inside a maximum security cell, with no independent witnesses, and a man the United States had been trying to extradite for years. The Dominican government closed the case. His death was the first moment the full scale of what had been happening inside Najayo became public knowledge. He built the most expensive cell in Dominican criminal history. He never spent a single night in it like a prisoner. El Conejo, Tren del Pacífico, Venezuela. San Antonio Prison, Margarita Island, a Caribbean tourist destination with beaches, clear water, and duty-free shops. And a maximum security prison that, for over a decade, its inmates ran completely. Armed government soldiers stood at the front gate. They watched. They said nothing. The man who ran it was Teófilo Rodriguez Cazorla, El Conejo, the Rabbit. He was convicted of drug trafficking, car theft, and illegal possession of firearms, and arrived in San Antonio in 2003. In Venezuelan prisons, the top inmate leader is called the Pran. El Conejo became the Pran of San Antonio and held that position for over a decade. Under his rule, the facility was rebuilt. Amongst others, 4 swimming pools were built, 4 inside a maximum security prison. The New York Times sent a journalist inside and documented what he found. Bikini-clad female visitors sunbathing poolside in the Caribbean sun, while reggaeton thumped from a functioning nightclub built inside the compound. A cockfighting arena. Cash bets are placed openly. Couples dancing on weekends. Marijuana, a permanent feature of the air. Hair salons, taco stands, grocery stores, each one inmate-owned, inmate-run, operating daily. One inmate, a Mexican pilot serving time for a cocaine trafficking conspiracy involving a Gulfstream jet, told the Times, "The Venezuelan prisoners run the show, and that makes life inside a bit easier for everyone." Outside, ordinary Venezuelan citizens stood in food queues. Inside San Antonio, El Conejo's inmates ran their own shops. El Conejo's brand was a rabbit logo, adapted from the Playboy symbol, painted across the prison walls. Inmates had it tattooed on their bodies as a mark of allegiance. He enforced a strict internal code. Stealing from another inmate brought immediate violent punishment. Some inmates told journalists that San Antonio was genuinely safer than the streets of Margarita Island outside. The weapons contradicted that comfort. A K-47s, AR-15, M16, Magnums, Colts, Uzis, Ingrams, all in regular circulation inside an active staffed penitentiary. He ran the Tren del Pacifico, a Venezuelan criminal network operating across drug trafficking, kidnapping, and extortion from inside the compound using mobile phones and laptops. Inmates arranged drug deals, organized abductions, and coordinated murders from their cells. Some left during the day for outside business and returned at night. El Conejo came and went entirely as he pleased. When Venezuela's Minister of Prisons, Iris Varela, visited San Antonio in 2011 to negotiate lower internal violence, she ended the meeting by taking a selfie with El Conejo. That photograph circulated globally. Within months, Venezuela's prison minister was defending it to the national media. On January 24, 2016, El Conejo was at a nightclub in Porlamar. He was not supposed to be there, but the rules had never applied to him. His Toyota Corolla was ambushed while leaving the venue and hit with approximately 70 bullets. He was taken to the hospital. He died of his wounds. He was 44 years old. The following day, his coffin was brought back to San Antonio prison. Dozens of inmates climbed onto the roof and fired automatic weapons into the air as a salute. The footage went global instantly. Within days, over 2,000 inmates were forcibly transferred to facilities across the country. Violence inside spiked without El Conejo's enforcement structure holding it together. In 2017, with the prison ungovernable, Venezuela permanently closed San Antonio. For over a decade, a convicted drug trafficker ran a Caribbean resort inside prison walls, with swimming pools, nightclubs, and an arms depot, while soldiers in green fatigues stood at the front gate. The next man had none of that, only voice. Juan Gabriel, Lecumberri Prison, Mexico City. He was 20 years old. His name at the time was Alberto Aguilera Valadez. He had no money, no connections, no criminal network, and no cartel behind him. In 1969, he was arrested in Mexico City on a theft charge and brought to the Palacio de Lecumberri, the largest and most feared penitentiary in the city, where beatings and torture by guards were documented and routine, where political prisoners, murderers, and petty criminals were held together in conditions the Colombian author Manuel Zapata Olivella documented after his own imprisonment there in the 1950s. Testimony that predates Juan Gabriel's arrival by a decade and describes the same institutional brutality. Alberto Aguilera Valadez was placed in an ordinary cell, standard food, no privileges, 18 months ahead of him. Then the guards heard him sing. The prison director, Andres Puentes Vargas, took notice quickly. He had the young man perform for the inmates. What happened inside that room had never happened before in that wing. Guards relaxed. Inmates stopped what they were doing and simply listened. The atmosphere in the wing changed, all through a voice. Over time, the director arranged better conditions. A more spacious cell, cleaner clothes, a proper mattress. Food was brought from outside, while others ate whatever the prison kitchen produced. Eventually, a guitar was permitted. Inside that cell, with that guitar, Alberto Aguilera Valadez began writing. Two of the songs he composed during those 18 months were No Tengo Dinero and Me He Quedado Solo. Both would become major hits. Both were written inside a cell by a man who had absolutely nothing. His growing reputation inside the facility eventually connected him to the right person. The prison director introduced him to singer Enriqueta Jimenez, known professionally as La Prieta Linda, one of the most respected figures in Mexican popular music at the time. She heard him perform. She went directly to the judge overseeing his case. La Prieta Linda was not a minor figure making a personal plea. She was one of the most decorated voices in Mexican popular music, and her advocacy carried institutional weight. She argued the evidence was insufficient. The judge reviewed the file and agreed. Alberto Aguilera Valadez was released. La Prieta Linda took him directly to RCA Victor. He auditioned. He was signed immediately. He chose the name Juan Gabriel. His debut album, El Alma Joven, was released in 1971. No Tengo Dinero and Me He Quedado Solo, both written in that cell, became his first commercial hits. What followed was one of the most successful careers in Latin music history. Over 100 million albums sold, arenas across Latin America, the United States, and Europe for 4 decades. The Latin Recording Academy named him Person of the Year at the 2009 Grammy Awards, when he died of a heart attack on August 28, 2016. Both the Mexican and American presidents issued public statements of mourning. His estate was estimated at over $200 million. The room where he had nothing became the room where he wrote the songs that built everything. Robinho. Tremembe Penitentiary, Brazil. Robson de Souza, Robinho, before March 21, 2024, rose to national fame at 18. He led Santos to its first Brazilian national championship since the Pelé era. He signed with Real Madrid. He became Manchester City's first major big-money signing, 5 years at AC Milan, 100 appearances for the Brazilian national team, Copa America winner, league titles in Spain and Italy. Career earnings place his personal fortune at approximately $50 million. None of it helped him inside Tremembe. In 2013, while playing for AC Milan, Robinho and 5 other Brazilian men sexually assaulted a 22-year-old Albanian woman at a Milan nightclub after deliberately getting her intoxicated. A Milan court convicted all 6 in 2017. Robinho received a 9-year sentence. An Italian appeals court confirmed it in 2020. Italy's Supreme Court made it final in January 2022. Brazil's constitution prohibits the extradition of its own nationals, a provision that applies to every Brazilian citizen regardless of the crime. So, Italy took a different route, formally requesting that the conviction be recognized and enforced under Brazilian law on Brazilian soil. In March 2023, Brazil's Superior Court of Justice ruled the Italian sentence valid and enforceable on Brazilian soil. On March 21, 2024, federal police arrested Robinho at his home in Santos. He was transferred to Tremembe Penitentiary, 150 kilometers northeast of São Paulo, that same week. His first 10 days were spent in solitary confinement, standard Brazilian prison procedure for convicted rapists, applied regardless of what you earned outside. His cell ranges between 8 and 15 square meters. Routine starts at 6 in the morning. Meals are communal. Recreational time is limited. Visits permitted at weekends only. Family attending together. While other prisoners he once played alongside still wake up to training sessions, club meals, and hotel rooms on away trips, Robinho wakes to that same bell and waits for Saturday. He said so himself. In a 2025 interview conducted inside Tremembe, Robinho addressed his conditions directly. Here the guards are in charge, and we, the inmates, just obey. I have never received any special treatment. Visits are on Saturdays or Sundays. There was no private chef, no plasma television, no bribed guards, no parties, and no smuggled phones. What Tremembe has is a schedule, breakfast at a communal table, work or study hours, an hour in a shared yard, a cell that holds a bed, a toilet, and whatever his family brings on Saturday. The Copa America medal, the Real Madrid shirt, the $50 million, not one of those things purchased a single privilege inside Tremembe. Under Brazilian law, he becomes eligible for review of his detention regime after serving roughly 40% of his sentence, around 2027, at which point a judge may consider a semi-open arrangement. That is not automatic. It depends on conduct, legal requirements, and judicial discretion. His legal team has filed multiple challenges, including habeas corpus requests and arguments on national sovereignty grounds. As of 2025, every request has been rejected. He will be past the typical retirement age for professional football before early release is even a possibility. No club will absorb the reputational consequence of signing a convicted rapist. The career built across 3 continents is over. He is an inmate number. He wakes at 6 a.m. and waits for the weekend. Changpeng Zhao, Lompoc, 2 Federal Prison, California. On April 30th, 2024, a federal judge in Seattle sentenced a man in a dark suit and light blue tie to 4 months in prison. His mother and sister watched from the front row. Half a dozen lawyers sat beside him. On that day, Bloomberg estimated his personal fortune at $43 billion, more than 3 times El Chapo's peak estimated fortune. Changpeng Zhao, CZ, founder of Binance, the largest cryptocurrency exchange ever built, was the wealthiest person ever sentenced to prison in the United States, and almost certainly in the history of the world. Binance launched in Shanghai in 2017. Within 3 years, it processed over $1 trillion in annual trading volume. CZ owned approximately 90% of the company. His conviction was for 1 count of violating the Bank Secrecy Act, the U.S. law that requires financial institutions to report transactions that could be linked to money laundering, terrorism financing, or sanctions violations. Binance had done the opposite. It had actively allowed all 3. Under his leadership, Binance had failed to implement adequate anti-money laundering controls, allowing cyber criminals, terrorist organizations, and entities under U.S. sanctions to move money freely through the platform. Prosecutors described Binance's model as the Wild West. Binance agreed to pay $4.3 billion in penalties, one of the largest corporate fines in U.S. enforcement history. CZ paid a personal fine of $50 million. He pleaded guilty, stepped down as CEO, and told Judge Richard Jones directly, "I failed here. I deeply regret my failure, and I am sorry." Prosecutors had asked for 3 years. The court gave him 4 months. He reported to Lompoc 2, a low-security federal correctional institution on California's Central Coast near Santa Barbara. Over 2,000 inmates were in the building. No private wing, chef, custom furniture, bribed guards, parties, or satellite dish. He followed the same institutional rules as every other man inside. At Davos in January 2026, he described it as a place with very limited freedom. He missed his family. He missed good food. He missed his own bed. Meanwhile, outside the walls of Lompoc 2, his 90% stake in Binance kept generating wealth. Forbes estimated he may have been accumulating as much as $25 million per day during his confinement as crypto markets moved and Binance continued operating under new CEO Richard Teng. Run the numbers. He spent 117 days inside. At $25 million per day, that is approximately $3 billion accumulated while sleeping on a government mattress and eating institutional food. In August 2024, he was moved to a halfway house in San Pedro, California on September 27, 2024, 2 days ahead of his official release date. Because the scheduled date fell on a Sunday, he walked out of a halfway house in Long Beach, net worth at that moment, approximately $30 billion. By 2025, as crypto markets surged, some valuations placed it at $74.7 billion, significantly more than the $43 billion he walked in with. His first public act after release was a post announcing plans to invest in artificial intelligence, blockchain, and biotechnology. In October 2025, President Trump granted him a full pardon, wiping the federal conviction from his record. CZ had become one of the most prominent voices in the crypto industry's push for regulatory reform in the United States, an industry that had donated heavily to Trump's 2024 campaign. The pardon was controversial, and it was also legal. In April 2026, he published a full memoir covering Binance's rise, his guilty plea, and the 117 days inside Lompoc 2. He had $43 billion. He served 4 months. He followed every rule, asked for nothing, bribed no one, dug no tunnel, threw no party. He walked out richer than when he arrived. Prison, for Changpeng Zhao, was the slowest and least comfortable way he has ever made $3 billion. Bastoy Prison, Oslo Fjord, Norway. There were no high perimeter walls, no razor wire, no isolation units, no corruption scandals, no bribed guards, no tunnels, no private chefs, no parties with live bands inside maximum security walls. Bastoy Prison sits on an island approximately 75 kilometers south of Oslo, in the Oslo Fjord. It holds around 115 inmates. Bastoy has operated as an open prison since 1982, and it records a reoffending rate of just 16%. That 16% is not a recent result. It is 4 decades of consistent data. Compare that to the prisons in this video. Mexico, between 50 and 60% reoffending. The United States, the same. Much of Europe, similar. Norway's national average is already an impressive 20%. Bastoy outperforms it, consistently, every year, by a significant margin. Inmates must apply to transfer to Bastoy after demonstrating consistently good behavior and genuine motivation to change during earlier parts of their sentence. The application requires evidence. Being convicted of a violent crime, including murder or rape, does not automatically disqualify you. What matters is demonstrated intent to reform. Once accepted, inmates agree to follow the island's code of conduct. There has been exactly one escape attempt in Bastoy's recorded history, an inmate who swam toward the mainland and was caught within hours. He was transferred immediately. No one has tried since because the incentives to stay are stronger than the incentives to leave, and anyone who attempts escape is transferred immediately to a facility with significantly worse conditions. Life on Bastoy runs on a principle Norway calls normalization. The idea that a person leaving prison should know how to live outside it, not just how to survive inside it. Inmates live in wooden houses with private rooms. They wear their own clothes. They cook their own meals using fresh ingredients, some grown and harvested on the island's working farm and timber operation. The island runs approximately 80 buildings, a church, a school, a library operating to the same standard as any public library in Norway, a computer center, a football pitch, tennis courts, beach access along the fjord, and an Olympic-sized swimming pool. In winter, inmates ski. They ride horses and bicycles. They tend crops and cut timber as structured daily work. The library catalog is identical to what any Norwegian citizen can access outside. Coffee and tea are served during opening hours. Books can be borrowed and returned electronically without involving the librarian. There are no locked cells during the day. Movement around the island is free within the community's rules. The only thing Bastoy inmates cannot do is leave the island without authorization. Now, hold that image against what you have just watched. El Chapo ordered cognac and imported desserts inside Puente Grande, then spent the rest of his life in a 7x12 concrete box in Colorado. Florian Fales was eating wagyu and black caviar in a custom mahogany cell, then dying in it, shot 6 times. El Conejo was sunbathing at a poolside party while soldiers watched from the gate. And against all of that, Bastoy, where inmates ski in winter and reoffend at 16%. The facility costs money to run, but the cost of an inmate reoffending, being arrested, prosecuted, tried, convicted, and reincarcerated, is measurably higher than the per-person cost of running Bastoy. Reoffend, and the state pays to arrest, prosecute, try, convict, and reincarcerate you. Run those costs against Bastoy's per-person budget. The gap is not close. As of 2024, approximately 30% of Bastoy's population is made up of foreign nationals, a rising proportion that has not changed the result. Its approach has been studied by criminal justice researchers and government delegations from multiple countries, including the United States, where the reoffending rate remains above 50%, and where no federal policy has managed to bring that number down. The island runs on rules that every inmate chose to accept when they applied to be there. 7 stories, 7 answers to the same question. And the one that cost the least to build is the only one that actually worked. If you enjoyed this, make sure to click on the cards on the screen now for more interesting stories.